applicants for 100 jobs, and he got one of the 100 jobs. His brother Simon graduated last year from the University of City of London, a 4-year course in philosophy. In 3 years, he graduated in 3 years, and the last 2 of those 3 years he studied the ancient philosophers in Latin, the language that they wrote and spoke. And he got a full scholarship to get a master's degree at Oxford University, the #1 university in the world. And he's going to graduate next month, a 2-year course in philosophy in 1 year. And he's taking a break from education before he goes for his doctorate. He's going to become an assistant professor at a school, college in Tokyo for 2 years. And then he'll come to America and get a doctorate. And Sarah is a freshman in the Tokyo School of Languages. She's expected to come here in July to interview me for a Japanese television station, which will really be something great for me. So I have a family now in Japan. They call us, who served in World War II, the greatest generation. Well, we're not the greatest generation. The greatest generation were the people in America, the leaders of America, because after the war, we, with ingenuity and financing, rebuilt Germany, Italy, and Japan into democracies, and they are our best friends today. And Russia, who was an ally of America, seemingly today is the enemy of the world. I'd like to ask all of you to stand when I reach when you have the answer to the questions I'm going to ask you. I'd like to know in this audience, teachers, anybody who's here, who has a relative that were Native American Indians at one point in time living in America. Does anybody here stand up, Native American? Thank you. Is there anybody in this audience whose family came, remain standing, whose family, please remain standing, whose family came to this country on the Mayflower, came here before America was established? Please stand up. Is there anybody in the audience who has a relative that lived any time from 1700 to today, any time came here from a foreign country to become an American? Is anybody in the audience? Please stand. I suppose there's 1 or 2 people who are standing or sitting. They might not know who they are, but I'd like you to look around and see everyone that is standing here, because we are America. There is no difference in the eyes of nature. You can sit now, please. There's no difference between any of us. How do I know that? I know that because the sperm of a white Jewish man fertilized the egg of a Japanese Buddhist woman and produced grandchildren that I love as much as I love my American grandchildren. Now, in February of this year, my fingers were turning black, and I went to my local doctor in Fairfield, and they said to me, "We can't take care of you." This was on a Friday. They said, on Monday at 1:45, go to room 209 in the Eastman building at the Great River Hospital in Burlington, Iowa. So I walked in at 1:45 into the Eastman building in Burlington, Iowa. And the doctors' names were all foreign to me. Completely foreign to me. So I asked the receptionist, "What's the name of the doctor that I'm going to see?" And she said, "You're going to see Dr. Al-Wadani." Where is he from? Palestine. I'm a Jewish guy who lived in Israel for a number of years. And I know the enmity, I know the anger between the two, between the Israelis and the Arabs. I don't agree with what they're doing in Israel, what Netanyahu is doing with the West Bank. And I know the problems that they have. So I said to myself, I'm going to say something to Dr. Al-Wadani. While he's examining my fingers, I said, "Doctor, what is your first name?" He said, "Abdullah." "May I call you Abdullah?" He said, "Of course." And I said, "You know, Dr. Abdullah, I lived in Israel in the 60s, and I know what's going on now, and I know it's not good for the Arabs, and I know the Israelis are not doing the right thing, and I'm a Jewish man." And he looked at me and said, "You have no idea who we are." When he was finished examining me, he asked me a question. He said, "Do you know what my hobby is, Jerry?" I said, "I don't have a clue." He said, "My hobby is World War II, and I've read every book that I can find, and you are the very first World War II veteran that I've ever met." So I talked to him 10 or 15 minutes. He asked me questions, and I went home. I was very impressed with this man as a doctor and as a man. And I had a scale model of my P-51, the numbers on it, the serial number, the paint job, the kills that I had, Japanese flags, and I packed that up, mailed it to him. 10 days later, I'm back in his office. He's waiting for me, takes me into his office, his private office, and on his desk is my P-51. And he's taking care of patients. When he comes back, he sits down, starts to finger, looks at my fingers, looks at me, and stands up and reaches into his pocket and pulls this out of his pocket. And he said, "Jerry, my father died when he was 72 years old. And he carried these every day of his life. I want you to have them." And I said, "Abdullah, that's a family heirloom. That's for your grandchildren. That's for your children." He said, "I want you to have them." Well, when I left his office, I sat in my car and I counted. There's 33 beads. And then when I got home, I looked up Muslim prayer beads on the internet. And it said Muslims say a prayer 33 times or 99 times. And they use these beads to count. So you have a Jewish man carrying Muslim prayer beads in his pocket, and they will be there for the rest of my life. Why? Because I met a man, as I met the Japanese, as a human being. Not for what he believes, not for what he is, worship. Not Muslim, is Palestinian, but a human being. About 60 years ago, I sat in a lecture, and the man standing here was Jacques Cousteau, a very famous oceanographer. And there were several hundred people in the audience, and he looked at us and he said, "We all know that airplanes are held together by rivets. Now, an airplane can lose 1,000 rivets, or 10,000 rivets, or 100,000 rivets, but there's one rivet that keeps that airplane flying. If they lose that rivet, the airplane crashes." Everybody's agreed. He said, "The Earth, our planet, is made up of rivets. Every living thing on this planet, whether it's a bug, whether it's a worm, whether it's a snake, whether it's a fish, whether it's a mammal, whether it's a human being, are the rivets that hold this planet together. And if we lose 100 rivets, or 1,000 rivets, 100 living things, 1,000 living things, the planet will continue to function. But we do not know which rivet, when that disappears, when the planet environment is going to disappear with it, where life cannot be sustained. So your generation, you in your generation, have to take over where we fail, because we are losing rivets every single day. We don't know which rivet is going to stop life on this earth. We have developed weapons of mass destruction. I think the very first weapon ever was a rock held by a caveman that knew he could get something from someone if he used that rock to threaten him, or did use the rock. From the rock, we have a slingshot, David and Goliath, and then bows and arrows. And then Chinese invented gunpowder. We have guns that shoot. We went from atomic energy to nuclear energy. If we ever drop nuclear bombs, this life will be lifeless. The planet will be lifeless. So you have a responsibility. You are the next greatest generation. Any questions? Thank you so much.